Talking about USC, last time I called into the show, the other show, I think I was a little harsh on the offensive line with, Caleb Williams does hang on to the ball quite a bit longer than anyone else, maybe any other quarterback in the country, hands down. How's that going to do in the pros?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, one thing is he has a whole nother year to figure it out, but I think he'll be fine. I think he hangs on to the ball because he can. I think he hangs on to the ball in a system that, you're right. He's going to need to be able to make that quick read because there's been a lot of guys that have all the ability, but nothing between the ears. I'm not saying that's Caleb Williams, right? But those windows and the time and those defensive ends get a lot faster once you move from college to pro. Means that I think the jump from high school to college is big, is a lot bigger. But from college to pro, it's also a pretty big jump, and the windows get smaller, but especially that time window to get rid of the ball. So yeah, he's going to need to learn to get those quick reads and get the ball out.
Absolutely, because the offensive line can kind of just hold up a defensive lineman for 3 seconds, right? 1, 2, 3, the ball's out, and what he likes to do is go back, and he's running for his life and he's finding someone open, and that's all game. But in the NFL, once the D lineman is past the lineman, he's going to sack you. They have that kind of speed. So I was just at a pure evaluation as a NFL prospect. I was wondering if that's going to hurt him, or do you see him going number one hands down? Not next year, the year after next, I guess.
Is that for Mark or for me?
I do.
For either.
Unless we see something different from his game, I see him as the overall number one pick a year from now.
I don't think people give him enough credit for his arm talent as well. I think that he does what he does because he can, because of the situation. You also have to remember that when you have in the pros, he's going to have offensive linemen that are going to give him, he's going to have, hopefully, once he goes to the Jets or something, he's going to have an offensive line that's going to take care of him, and give him time to make 1 or 2 reads. A lot of times this year, because of the patchwork offensive line we've had, he hasn't had time to go to a second and third read because he's got defensive linemen all over him within seconds. So a lot of that's it's not by design. It's just what happens. But I've seen him make great reads. I mean, the way he gets the ball out, there's a lot of throws. He can make that 3/4 throw. He can go to the top. He's got a strong arm. He fit tight windows. He can take those hole shots. I mean, he can beat the safety a lot of times with those hole shots. That shows a lot of arm strength, and he puts the ball right where he needs to. So I think his arm talent is underplayed, and I think that I think Reen, he's a student of the game. He's a bright kid. I can't see why he wouldn't be able to pick up on those reads.
Yeah, and then we had the other gentleman in that show. His name, I just can't think of it right now. I'm drawing a blank. But he said that Caleb, he considered the greatest Trojan quarterback of all time. How do you – and I was just thinking about this. I was like, if Carson Palmer or Matt Leinart were the quarterback this year, do we have the exact record, or would they do better?
Because even Carson and Matt were 2 different quarterbacks as well. I think you're trying to compare 2 eras together. I think Caleb Williams is more like the modern day quarterback, right? He's a Mahomes. He's the guy that's going to move the ball, get outside, and he's going to make plays with his feet just as much as his arm, like Lamar Jackson, that kind of thing, whereas you're talking about 2 pocket passers there. I know that the funny thing is Carson Palmer was more mobile than people gave him credit for. He was a big, I stood next to this man. He is a massive, you would think he's an offensive lineman at first glance. He's a big man with a cannon arm, but he was also pretty mobile. I don't like that comparison because if you're talking about pure winning and accomplishment, Matt Leinart's the most accomplished quarterback at USC. Is he the best? I'm sure that even Matt would probably say that Caleb can do things that he can't do. I'm sure he has a better arm and better legs, but we just talked about, what about pre-snap reads? What about knowing the defense? What about making the right decisions? Maybe, when to do this, when to do that. I think people over time have really downplayed how good Leinart is, because you just go back to that 2005 Notre Dame game on fourth. It was fourth and 9, in the 2005 game. He literally put the ball right where it had to be, and Dwayne Jarrett had a contact knock loose, so he couldn't see the ball. So the ball wasn't right in the breadbasket, right where it had to be. That wasn't going to happen, and he audibled to that play. Kiffin said, "Look for this safety, but whatever the read." And pre-snap, he switched to an audible, and bam, they went to that play, and the rest is history. So I don't know. It depends on how you're evaluating your quarterbacks.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent
Yeah,
point. Yeah,
and I also think that a lot of guys take a hit if they go to the NFL, don't have it work out for them. They're like Leinart didn't, and then people evaluate the college career and aren't able to separate the two.
And then Castle goes on to have a 10-year career as the backup, but never had a meaningful snap at USC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the pro game has changed so much. It seemed like in the past, nowadays they work with the quarterback to best fit him for the team. They work for him, and in the past, I feel like the quarterbacks was forced to. Does that make sense? Like nowadays, they really work with the quarterback to develop him into basically work around how his personal quarterbacking style is. In the past, I remember Steve Young saying about Eli Manning, he goes, I think it's really scary when they're saying, hey, let's just pick whatever plays you like, whatever you're comfortable with running. And I think they do that nowadays in the NFL compared to in the past. In the past, it was so rigid, as in, hey, this is how we do things. We don't do this like you did at University of Texas,
Yeah. I don't know that Vince Lombardi really cared what plays Bart Starr really wanted to call or what suited his abilities, rather than this is the offense we run, so you better be good enough to run it. And I know I'm going to prehistoric days, but even way beyond that, Chuck Noll, Terry Bradshaw, Tom Landry, Roger Staubach, on through. You mentioned Joe Montana. He was just brilliant in Bill Walsh's offense, but I don't think it had to do with Bill Walsh.
Well, just Steve Young come in and do pretty much the same thing with a little more legs,
But it wasn't Bill Walsh saying, I'm going to adjust my offense to fit Joe Montana. Yeah.
And you mentioned Joe Montana. If you look at his tape, Patrick Mahomes, and I would never think I would compare Joe Montana and Patrick Mahomes, but Joe Montana was incredibly in the pocket. He moved incredibly. If you see some of the old highlights of Joe, he is moving around the pocket incredibly, and he just had a can of an arm. I mean, the greatest quarterback, the most talented quarterback ever, Joe Montana.
Most talented quarterback of all time.
Absolutely.
Talented?
Okay. I don't agree with that. No.
You don't think so?
No.
The greatest quarterback of all time, Joe?
That's debatable. He's definitely in the argument. And before Tom Brady did what he did, most people thought he was.
Well, I think Tom Brady is the GOAT.
Yeah, he's the most accomplished.
The most accomplished,
yes.
The GOAT.
I think there's a difference there. Like, I believe Aaron Rodgers can play the position better than Tom Brady, but he hasn't accomplished anything close to what Tom Brady has.
And that's funny to me because, Aaron Rodgers will never, ever get close to Tom Brady's accomplishments. And when I watch him play, I think Tom's better, but I can't tell you. I've heard so many athletes and experts tell me that Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Tom Brady.
Well,
and I don't see it, but I have to believe it.
Don't watch the Aaron Rodgers of today at whatever he is, 38 years old, even though he can still move. But, man, you take it back 5 to 10 years, the way he can move and throw lasers on the run. Yeah, Tom Brady does not have his mobility, number one, nor his arm talent. Check out, we could name a zillion different plays out of Aaron Rodgers, but he won a playoff game in Dallas by getting basically trapped against the sideline and throwing the ball like almost from his hip like that, spinning it like 35 or 40 yards and putting the ball exactly where it needed to be on the sideline to save a game. Like, yeah.
It's funny. I I used to work with Aaron Rodgers' old girlfriend, and she used to talk about how great her boyfriend was at playing football. And I was like, he plays at junior college, a Butte County junior college. He can't be that good.